vai ser uma conversa um pouco menos formal e, na verdade, até eu vou fazer assim em inglês porque era bom já se acostumar aí aos desafios. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the laboratories themselves. I know people who have been in the labs can talk to you tomorrow. Just wanted to reflect a little bit on, what is the role of Harvard's David Rockefeller Center office, which is right down the street on Avenida Paulista. How did we find out about this initiative, which existed before our office did? The office has been here since 2006. This collaboration is older than that. And what has created the opportunity, we found out about this literally by FMUSP students knocking on the door and saying, we need help. I said, help for what? We need money. Money for what? Who are you? And it was actually a very interesting process. At the beginning, honestly, I didn't even think this had anything to do with the job that we have here in the office, which is faculty and student collaboration, formal programs, getting more students from Harvard to Brazil and from Brazil up to Harvard. But this was interesting. It was a laboratory experience. It was Brazilians going to Harvard. It wasn't a formal program where people apply to a school and take classes. So I wasn't really sure that it made sense for us to help with, frankly. But it did seem to make a lot of sense because of the students and the enthusiasm and the importance that the students were putting on it. So this was back in 2008, I think, for a group that went in 2009. And literally it was sort of Friday night and Saturday at the office, just because I wasn't sure if I should actually be doing this or not. And there was a very rich back and forth in terms of students telling me, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. So I didn't understand the content so much of what was being done. And it took me a while to understand, okay, this more or less has to do with air pollution, urology, other things that I don't know the details about. But it also took a while for, I think, the students and Professor Saldiva to understand from the perspective of someone outside what is really special about this is about investment in smart, energetic, hardworking, hungry people who are going to have a long career in front of them. So we spent a little bit of time understanding who exactly are you and what are you trying to achieve to try to address the problem of getting funds. How would you get funds? We don't have funds centrally. There wasn't sort of a sack of money. Yes, we're interested. Let's do this. So that was the first year, and just thinking about the profile of everybody that's involved, whether it's the office, whether it's all of the students, whether it's Professor Saldiva, whether it's Patrice, whether it's the lab heads, John Godleski, whether it's John Godleski's wife who picks people up in her minivan, those are actually the things that really matter a lot. And I think that the entrepreneurial profile of everybody involved is extremely important because, as Professor Pepino said, this has progressed and has gotten more formal, and it's gotten more recognition, and it's gotten more support. But this is still, very early on, and there are lots of challenges, not just in terms of the experience in the labs and needing to get used to life in Boston, which can be cold in multiple senses, which can also be fantastic. You need to be ready to take that on, and in the selection process, and maybe we can do questions and answers, the selection process isn't a typical apply to Harvard School of Public Health degree program or apply to Harvard Medical School degree program. It's something between being informal and just a personal relationship and something that's totally formal. So it's migrated, but it's not fully there. And I think that to be able to continue to survive and grow and thrive, it really depends on the FMUSP students who have been incredibly entrepreneurial, putting out information, making it possible for you to hear from people who have actually been in the labs. I don't know what it's like to be in any one of these labs. I know what the feedback is from the faculty hosts at Harvard. I know that it started with one professor and now it's 5 or 6 or 7 professors. We know that it was a couple of students per year and now it's up to 10, and really what the problem is how many people can fit into houses and how can you deal with the logistics of it. It's not about are there enough smart students at the FMUSP to be successful in the different labs. that frankly isn't even a concern that I have. I've never heard any feedback about students that don't have the technical skills or the knowledge to be able to be successful. It's about attitude, you know, and that's really a key factor. Does this make sense for everybody? You're going to have challenges, you know, you're going to confront difficulties. Some will be in the lab, but a lot of them will just be about, well, you know, I remember a student, we didn't have money, he was applying for his visa. You know, he said, I'm going to withdraw my visa application because I don't have enough money December 23rd for going in January 1st or even in December. Basically got a call and said, okay, we can go, it will work. Or, you know, thinking about problems with housing. Those are the type of issues that come up. So in terms of the legacy of students from the FMUSP and this, you know, sort of program in general, what has allowed it to succeed against all odds and to grow has been the commitment and that entrepreneurial spirit of people. So I think that, you know, the selection process, and this gets a little bit to the letters of recommendation, you're looking at the whole person. You're not just looking at what's the score, you know, on a standardized test. You know, if the group of students shows up and is brilliant in labs, but doesn't handle the challenges of needing to meet people when there's not necessarily a set structure, that's not going to necessarily work, even if that person was more skilled technically than somebody else. So obviously you need to have both, and I think, you know, that's something that should be taken into consideration. I know that the faculty and the lab heads at Harvard speak incredibly highly of people. We've had challenges and learning processes on both sides along the way, and it's not perfect. I think it is definitely stronger than it was, and this year's group that's up there is better informed about what it was that they were going to get into. I mean, things change, be ready for things to change, both in terms of adjusting to things that aren't exactly what you wanted, but also opportunities that you had no idea existed and figuring out how to take advantage of them. So that's you know, a rough overview. What really has stuck with me about the success of this is the attitude of people. And, you know, how far can this get? How much will it work? It's come a long way. It's got recognition. There still are those issues to work through. And, you know, the people who are there, I think, you know, the question about, well, are people who are applying to the laboratories at the Harvard School of Public Health, that because of Patrice Ayers, because of some administration, because of, you know, it's no different here. You got the FMUSP right here. You're right down the street. You got Srougi Publica. You've got different labs and places here. The administration is not the same. So this year, the groups will be dealt with. One chunk will be, you know, labs at Harvard School of Public Health tied in. That doesn't mean that there aren't the other opportunities. There very much are. The people who are most knowledgeable about those are either the lab heads or the individuals who have been there. So I think that having descriptions, knowing which the labs are, being able to talk to and have identified the specific FMUSP students who have been to those labs, if you're interested in going, do your homework. You know, not just on a website, but talk to somebody to understand, does this make sense for me? Why am I doing this? It's not for everybody. You know, what is it that I can really take advantage of? Because that quality of student commitment is, I think, what I've heard about on my most recent trip back up to Boston is, you know, this is going very well. Everybody seems very committed. It's, you know, the Red Sox, the Bruins, everything, you know, that's great, you know, and it's wonderful to take advantage of that. But, you know, if that's the only thing people are doing, that leaves a really big problem. And some of the stumbling blocks, one year, and it wasn't incredibly recent, you know, people leave and literally the furniture is left behind. And Mrs. Godleski is wondering, how am I going to deal with all of this furniture? That's actually what could stop this thing from working. So that's enough background. I think questions, there should be plenty. I'm happy to take any that I can answer, and I'll be the first to say there are some that I can't answer. But the job of our office here is really to try to fill in gaps. And a huge amount of the work has been done by, of course, lab heads, but also from the FMUSP students who have helped. So it's a joint effort, and figuring out how the cultures of USP and the opportunities and cultures and administration at different parts of Harvard can be made to work so that this continues and is successful. So it's been incredibly gratifying to start our office, not the initiative, but to start 5 years ago and think, I don't even know if we should be doing this, to getting to a point where there's more than 50 students who have been there, there's a lot of recognition, there's still a lot of questions, but there's momentum behind it. So open to any questions that people might have.
So as you all can see, you can always see that we have 2 languages and you can choose your feet to choose.
Yeah.
So
Dá para fazer as perguntas em português, está tranquilo.
Alguém tem alguma pergunta?
Tem. Quando o professor Saldiva falou sobre possibilidades de pesquisa, você mencionou cardiologia, que o professor Lieb teve aqui no simpósio e comentou alguma coisa. Já tem uma forma de aplicação pré-definida para esse tipo de pesquisa, para essa linha de pesquisa, se vai ser com saúde pública, ou se vai ser no BRICANS, tem alguma coisa definida nisso ou ainda é fase de testes?
Então, em relação à cardiologia, assim, eu estou aprendendo todo dia. Em relação à área médica, é muito complexa, porque tem a medicina, tem os hospitais afiliados, cada um tem uma relação diferente, cada departamento do laboratório tem uma... Então, dizer que eu tenho todas as respostas, não tenho. Peter Libby, que esteve aqui recentemente, existe sim alguma coisa mais formalizado na área de cardiologia, não sei se aplica para você no estágio aí, como aluno que está, mas a melhor coisa assim seria pensar bem o que eu quero, quais são as dúvidas, fuçar e saber o máximo possível antes de entrar em contato e depois, se não há resposta, assim, acho que Peter Libby está super interessado, eu estou à disposição, se chegar aí, dá para ajudar com o meio de campo, perfeito, não preciso, assim, a gente não precisa ficar no meio se não for necessário. Então, melhor o canal direto, se o canal direto vai resolver. Mas, se há essa dúvida, acho que cardiologia não está dentro desses laboratórios da saúde pública. Existe, sim, um histórico de alunos, existe um professor de renome com interesse, com conhecimento da ENCOR, da FMUSP, então há um caminho para descobrir.
Eu só para esclarecer essa ponta aí, eu tenho um aluno, que é o Daniel, ele está lá atualmente no laboratório do Peter Libby. Então amanhã, nas palestras de amanhã, quando o USP-Harvard Alumni falar, vai comentar um pouco dessa questão da dependência de um professor de aceitar e você pode ir. Então o que nós estamos mostrando aqui é o que já está certo ao longo dos anos. Tem muito mais coisa que pode estar rolando, que vocês correm atrás por vocês, mas o que está aqui é o que está estabelecido fora.
Eu queria saber qual exatamente é o tipo de vínculo que nós, como alunos, vamos ter com a Harvard lá, porque parece que a gente tem oportunidade de fazer cursos à noite na Extension School, mas, assim, exatamente o quanto a gente pode aproveitar, além dos laboratórios, também no tempo extra que nós tivermos.
Então, eu posso dar uma resposta geral e já dizer assim, quem foi para os laboratórios, os próprios alunos da FMUSP vão dar uma ideia melhor. Assim, essa questão de ser proativo é extremamente importante, porque a experiência entre um laboratório e outro vai variar de um ano para o outro, de um laboratório para o outro, do conhecimento que tem o aluno que está indo para lá. Então, acredito que quem mostra que tem capacidade vai avançar. E o que dá para aproveitar fora isso, eu sei que tem casos de alunos que foram para outras universidades próximas, que se envolveram em N coisas diferentes, mas eu acho que essa questão de serem assim, bastante empreendedor é muito importante, porque não estão entrando numa turma que tem aula todo dia, que tem um grupo pré-formatado, então tem que criar essa comunidade que, assim, num lugar estranho pode ser difícil. Então tem que estar pronto para isso e, ao mesmo tempo, tem que trabalhar e interagir e fazer, assim, contatos para saber aproveitar.